Hi, this is Joyce. In this video, I'd like to demonstrate how I set up and basted the Feather Rhapsody whole cloth. The basting lines will serve as boundary references for borders and blocks. By utilizing the X and Y coordinates of our machines, we don't have to mark the quilt top using rulers and marking pencils. I loaded my backing using pins. I floated the quilt top. I left my side clamps off until after basting was completed. The first thing that I did was to stitch a basting line across the top to anchor the quilt top down. Then I was ready to start stitching my basting lines. I used baste mode and 1 stitch per inch to stitch my lines. I have baste mode on the left side of my mode stop button so that I can reach baste from the head of my machine by moding. You can also go to the stitch drop down and select baste. After I did a basting stitch across the very top of my quilt top, then I moved my machine head to the approximate center of my quilt top. My x-axis, and I found an even number to make it easy for myself, my x-axis was at 65. I basted my vertical lines first and then basted my horizontal. So with my machine head at the center, I wrote down my center x-axis number as 65. And I basted the center from top to belly bar. Then based on this grid, the red numbers representing the distance between your basting lines, I moved my machine head to the left, found my next number, which was 59, and I basted that vertical line. Then I moved my machine head to the left again to my next number, which was 53. And I basted that number from top to bottom. I continued stitching the vertical lines until I got to the left side. Then I moved back to the center, found my x-axis numbers, and basted those vertical lines as well. Using this chart, you can change your center reference number and write it in, and then write down the numbers that you need to use to stitch the vertical basting lines. After those were done, then I came back and I found a horizontal line, and I started at 1 inch and I stitched horizontally at 1 inch and again at 4 inches, and followed the same grid work using my numbers based off of my y-axis, and until I got to where I needed to roll. I rolled the quilt, making sure that I could still reach this last horizontal line that I had stitched, and then continued. Your vertical numbers don't change as you roll, and I always did vertical first, but your horizontal will change, so each time that you roll, you'll have to put your machine head on the last horizontal row, write down your y-axis number, and then continue the basting segments down the side. When I reached the bottom, I also put an extra basting line at the very bottom of the quilt top, and then as I rolled back, I did an outside basting stitch on either side of the quilt top and rolled back to the top. When you've completed the basting, your quilt top will look similar to this. And these basting lines you'll be using when you need to click boundaries for borders and blocks. This basting outline gives you the framework that you need to place your patterns. Hope this helps.